Good afternoon, Ravenclaw class. I thought it is nearly the time that we would be getting ready to go home. We would then have a story, wouldn't we? So I thought, why don't I send you a story today? So here we go. I'm going to read you a story. And the story I've chosen today is called Tyrannosaurus Drip. I've got a feeling that Annabelle really enjoys this story. Here we go. Tyrannosaurus Drip by Julia Donaldson and David Roberts. In a swamp, beside a river, where the land was thick with veg, lived a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs who roamed the water's edge. And they hooted, "Up with the rivers!" And they hooted, "Up with the reeds!" And they hooted, "Up with the bellyfuls of juicy water weeds!" There they are, the duck-billed dinosaurs. Now across the rushy river, on a hill, on the other side, lived a mean Tyrannosaurus, with his grim and grisly bride. And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" But the two Tyrannosauruses, so grisly, mean and grim, couldn't catch the duck-billed dinosaurs because they couldn't swim. And they muttered, "Down with water!" And they muttered, "Down with wet!" And they muttered, "What a shame that bridges aren't invented yet!" Now, a little Compsognathus, but for short we'll call her Comp, found a duckbill egg and stole it from a nest beside the swamp. Oh no. And she swam with it and she ran with it. That poor little egg. And murmured, "Clever me. And won't the baby Comps be thrilled with duckbill egg for tea?" She dropped the egg in terror and went running for her life from the mean Tyrannosaurus and his grim and grisly wife. And the duckbill egg went rolling, and at last it came to rest in, of all unlikely places, the Tyrannosaurus's nest. Now, there it is. There they are. They're very scary. Now, the mother T had great big jaws. Can you show me great big jaws? And great enormous legs. But her brain was rather little, and she couldn't count her eggs, unlike us. And she sang, "Hatch out, my terrors, with your scaly little tails, and your spiked little toothies, and your scary little nails." Out hatched babies, 1 and 2, as perfect as could be. But Mother T was horrified by baby number 3. And she grumbled, "He looks weedy." And she grumbled, "He looks weak." And she grumbled, "What long arms! And look, his mouth is like a beak." Oh dear, he doesn't look the same as the other babies. "He just needs feeding up," said Dad, and gave the baby some meat. The first 2 gulped and guzzled, but the third refused to eat. And he said, "I'm really sorry." And he said, "I simply can't." And he said, "This meat looks horrible. I'd rather eat a plant." Oh dear. Doesn't sound like he's much of a carnivore, does it? "A plant!" yelled Mum in horror, and Dad said, "Get a grip." His sisters found a name for him, Tyrannosaurus Drip. And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-bill dinosaur!" Poor Tyrannosaurus Drip tried hard to sing along, but the others yelled, "You silly Drip, you've got the words all wrong." For he hooted, "Down with hunting!" For he hooted, "Down with war!" And he hooted, "Down with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" Drip's sisters soon grew big enough to hunt with Dad and Mum, but they turned on Drip and told him, "You're not fierce enough to come." And he cried, "They've gone without me." And they cried, "Alakade." And he cried, "This doesn't feel like home. I'm going to run away." Oh dear, look, they ran away and left poor little boy all by himself. So he ran off to the river, where he saw a lovely sight, a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs, all hooting with delight. They hooted up with rivers, they hooted up with reeds, they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. Oh, look, dinosaurs just like him. As he stood there on the bank, a sudden urge took hold of him. He jumped into the water and discovered he could swim. And the duckbills came to greet him by the rushy river's edge, and they hooted, "Nice to see you," and they hooted, "Have some veg." And Drip, who was delighted that they hadn't run away, ate bellyfuls of water reeds and played with them all day. Then he gazed into the river and he asked them, who is that creature in the water?" And they laughed and said, "It's you!" So he's looking at his reflection, isn't he? There he is, just there. And that's him looking right back at him. That night the lightning crackled and a storm blew down a tree and it fell across the rivers and the tees cried out, "Yippee!" Uh-oh. And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" Oh no. Drip's sisters stepped onto the bridge, but then began to frown. For there in front of them stood Drip, who yelled, "Look out! Look down!" And they looked into the water, and they each let out a yelp, and one cried, "Water monsters!" And the other cried, "Help!" Their mother scolded, "Nonsense!" and she joined them on the tree. Then she looked into the water and exclaimed, "Good gracious me!" The three of them stood trembling, and Dad said, "Get a grip! All of you are drippy as Tyrannosaurus Drip." He strode onto the bridge and scoffed, "I bet there's nothing there." Then he looked into the water and he jumped into the air. Woo! And how the duckbills hooted when he landed with a crash and the tree bridge broke. Uh-oh. And 4 Tyrannosauruses went splash. Can you all make a big splash? Splash! And spluttering and clinging to the branches of the tree, they went whooshing down a waterfall. There we go. And all the way to the sea. And the duckbills hooted happily. They hooted, "Hip, hip, hip, hooray for heroic one and only duckbill Drip." Thank you for listening. I would love some of you to also send me some stories, some lovely videos of you reading. I know you all enjoy to read to your classmates, and I'm sure you're missing them a little bit as well. So why don't you send a story so they all can see? Well done for all your hard work. I'm so proud of you all. See you all again soon.